All right. Welcome, welcome, welcome. As you can tell, I'm on a weird camera today. Welcome to the Product Guild. We had a little bit of a weird situation where my audio and camera decided to quit working, but we are here. We tested it earlier. It worked fine as it goes. It's technology. Welcome to the Product Guild. I'm Jessica. I'm your host. My angles are going to be weird. My lighting is going to be weird for this episode. Deal with it. It's me, right? Something always goes wrong. We are so excited today. We have an amazing guest, and we're going to run through the wonders of Web 1, the static web into the active web, all the way into this new environment that we're into right now in Web 3. And again, if my audio is weird, it's also because I have my phone, my laptop, as we're doing a last minute hit to try to get this episode out to you. So this is Super Team Germany's Product Guild. I'm your host, Jessica. Our lovely guest today is the amazing Marco. Do you want to introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about who you are?
Thank you so much, Jessica, for having me. This is it's really interesting. Yes, a few words about me. I'm coming all the way from Italy, crossing the Alps and settling in Berlin. This is my home now for the past 10 years. After lots of travelings around the world, I'm in a happy place here. I am involved in the design world for almost 2 decades, I would say, if I go and count the years. It's been a long while. Different kind of industries. I started with school web design and then shifted quickly into animation, and I found my space there. So I've been doing motion graphics work for many clients, many industries, and most importantly, I think the educational side was the one that mostly drove me through the years. And up until the 2021, into which I discovered Bitcoin from the technical perspective, and ever since I was involved into Web3 space for in many different ways. I began by building a blog, a resource educational system, and then I had the privilege of joining the Solana super team during the Grizzlython in 2023. And then shortly afterwards, I joined the Graph team in this remote context, which I'm part of for 2 years. And this is really exciting. It keeps on being exciting. And
Yeah, I'm going to cut you real quick, Marco. I'm so sorry, but you sound a little bit like you're talking in a glass vase or like a bubble. And I thought maybe it was just me, but then I just got a comment in the chat from Buenos Society Crypto Hub, who's also having trouble hearing you. So I think there might be a mic. It could be StreamYard tonight because I had issues. I couldn't get my audio to work. But maybe we just adjust the earbuds or the mic real quick.
let me see if this is better.
It's very green.
There could be echo. Is there a little better now?
It sounds like you're talking through like a static field. We were both, because we were so clear earlier and it worked perfectly on our test run. So
is it still the case? Do I sound robotic? Do my robotic soul comes out so much?
It kind of sounds like a 1990s horror movie, like we're talking through the TV and it's like.
Oh my God. Sometimes. Sorry about that.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think it could be a StreamYard issue tonight, everyone, because my mic on my computer wasn't working. We tested this earlier. Everything was fine. So
if I use my human voice now, hopefully this is better, or is it still the same? I can't.
No, it's pretty rough. I'm gonna try to. I thought maybe it was just mine, but no. Okay. So it might just be a StreamYard issue tonight, everyone. Now I'm getting feedback as well. Damn, what a day. Well, let's just try our best, right? We've got you. Let's just go for it. I think it's a StreamYard issue. Heartpool Lad just came in. He says, you sound like a Dalek from Doctor Who. So that could be a compliment. Okay, try it again for me. Talk for me real quick.
I can try the human voice that I
Okay,
have.
that's
Maybe
perfect.
this guy's, maybe this guy's stereo audio.
Yeah, so now we're going. But do I
Sorry
have an
everyone.
echo?
It is how it is.
Okay.
Maybe now it's better. Should I start the whole thing? I had it prepared. I thought I crushed it, and now I'm gonna have to
You
repeat
did,
it.
you crushed it. All right. Let's try it again though. Give us your intro again for everybody who couldn't hear you.
All right, yeah, part two, intro part two. Okay, so yeah, as I was trying to say, coming all the way from Italy, I settled down in Berlin 10 years ago and found a home ever since. I'm involved in the design industry for more than 2 decades by now, so it's been a long while looking at the screens and handling pixels. Motion design has been pretty much my main focus the whole time. I always been fascinated by the relation between us interacting with screen, either from a computer or from a laptop or from a mobile phone, and spending time, lots of time looking at screens. And so I always found, ever since like early 20s, I always found it the rhythm and the movement of motion graphics, like telling more, conveying more than just the story or just the facts. And this is how I decided to just dive into this world and make my living out of it. And it's been a lot of fun, a great journey. Yeah. And
Now I'm
now the
muted.
funny
Okay,
part is
so
that I don't hear you.
back to the question. What was your
Okay.
favorite part about the old world, that Web 1 world? Because I remember like GeoCities and LiveJournal and the community and learning how to hard code and how cool it was the first time you had colors pop up on a screen that you put together. What really pulled you into that kind of human computer interaction world?
Yeah. In the early days of the early internet, I think precisely this idea that all of a sudden into a screen so much can be condensed. Um, as we will see shortly soon, now we will see lots of animation, lots of movement. So my idea, I've never seen anything static in even into the days of Web 1. There was this tool called Flash. Maybe some dinosaurs out there can remember it. And this was the tool that I was using for creating engaging websites for the restaurants that I was working in and for my punk band that I was playing. And so that was the energy felt like, okay, this is gonna be the future. So that's what drive me.
That's so cool. What do you think? Should we watch that first video and get a feeling for you?
I think so because the speech, I mean, can you switch into the slide PDF? Because I wanted to exactly. So then when I go to the slide two, I thought starting the journey by, since we have this analogy Web 1, Web 2, Web 3, I thought, yeah, who said that Web 1.0 was static? Because exactly what we're gonna watch now. So thank you for playing the video.
All right, let's watch.
movement. Sorry for if it's too much because everything it's been so speed up. So food, music, and technology. This was pretty much the three industries that I was busy with in the early days. Yeah.
One of our listeners, Hartle Pool, comes in and goes, "Not sure what to think about being called a dinosaur." Uh, but we are. Dinosaurs are awesome, and that's why I had to put the little lull in the comment just to reiterate the dinosaur part. I remember back when LOL first came out, and it used to originally mean lots of love, and then it translated into laughing or whatever. And I'll never forget. Somebody had put a comment up about their grandmother dying, and I put LOL, thinking I was sending them lots of love, and it turned out to be laughing. So that's how big of dinosaurs we are around here right now when we're talking about the evolution of the internet.
Funny.
That graphic
Yeah.
video was amazing. Wow. What was your favorite part of that video in your creation process?
Yeah, I think the at the end of the movie you saw this little guy walking in a room, and that was the web game that we have built in this agency that I was working with back then. Very talented people, and it was so much fun to build the interaction. So to come up with the idea of what this little the guy called Willy will be doing around in the museum, and coming up with ideas and building it, like coding it with code within these tools, this design tool. So definitely the gaming experience was a lot of fun. And then what happened was that Flash, pretty much as Web 2.0 came to the world, Flash died, as we know, and that was the time for me to actually set sail to say, okay, this is enough. And I took a little break, and we can see from here, I took into the world. I went to explore. I went east all the way, wherever is possible, and I spent a few years backpacking, hitchhiking, and doing all the way. And this is where I gained a lot of experience and a lot of knowledge, meeting people, making new friends, and learning about the world pretty much.
Go
So
back to your
that's
map real quick for me, Marco, because I think something that's so important is when we're talking about design or product, is not just to talk about design inspiration, but also inspiration outside of the design world and look at things that inspire us, that maybe made us look at our design process in a different way. So, out of all these amazing locations that you've been to, which one do you think influence the way that you either look at design or product or creation in an entirely new way?
Well, in general, every of these Asian cultures have their own, so much of their own uniqueness. And right, so for me, maybe the most interesting things were not really one specific culture, but to understand there are so many cultures. And that was the game changer for me to see how big the world is and how much possibility. And and then you go from, as you see from those maps, I was really like doing really slow traveling, right? So when you go from a slow place to a slow place, you see how things are so close. From a small, when you look, as I say, from a zoom in perspective, when you're very close, everything seems the same, and then zooming out, you see the difference. So it's a kind of an interesting thing there. Depending on which perspective you look, you see lots of differences.
Yeah, it's really interesting because street signs work differently. The way knobs turn work differently. The habits and processes that people use in different countries around the world also work so differently, and they can really influence your design and thinking process. And also, just being in a new country and having to figure out a new system, it gets your brain working at new ways to connect dots or pull pieces together or create a better end product. I lived in India for 6 years and got to travel through a lot of Asia as well, and then spent a lot of time living in between Uganda and Egypt. And I think those really influence my design process, not just in the way I look at color or culture, but in user flows and user patterns and different ways that people will interact with websites or just accessibility. So it's so cool that you've also had this great kind of global experience. I think most everyone out
Yeah,
of the US has, but
for sure.
tell
Well
me
done
more about your
yourself.
journey. Tell me more about your journey before I cut into your introduction.
No, no, I was gonna say, well done yourself. You spend so much time in places that are not easy, not immediate. So, well, I mean, we could spend hours talking about these travels, but I think what I want to take out of this is that the inspiration of the world being so big, so much potential, and trying to do good or
Mhm.
trying to really bring a positive message, which is what has brought me to the idea of using my motion design skill for educational purposes. So I spent the following year, after being in Berlin, in basically having again luck and scouting for universities and entities that would kind of be open to challenge themselves instead of using traditional media to use animation to convey their things, as well as businesses that want to communicate not just selling products but just also communicate the added value of it. So if you would like to click the video number 3, we can get into
Perfect.
moving.
And just so everybody new who's come in, a little bit of snafu at the beginning. My computer audio does not want to work. So we've got the computer where I'm helping Marco with his videos, and then I'm actually on my phone, which is why the angle and lighting is bad. So if you see me moving around a little bit or moving my phone to get to the videos, please bear with us this week. We tested everything ahead of time and it worked really great. And as it does, technology got the best of us. Marco and I were actually laughing that it's not a tech event with me if it doesn't go wrong. And here it went
That's how it
wrong.
is.
Video
Thank you
number
for the
3.
support.
So cool.
I think this one, I can talk on top. This one can fade out a little bit. I think just to get the idea, information, and things coming together in this way. I notice how time goes really fast. It's been already 20 minutes. Crazy.
Well,
I
that's
still
largely
carry too
my
many
fault for
slides.
not having my video working or my
Okay,
mic.
fair.
Yeah.
So yeah, too many. There's too much to show. I wonder if maybe we skip a little bit into the introductory part because there's so much about the present that I want to show.
I have so many
Uh,
questions already coming up
I
in my
know, I
head. And if
know.
you're watching too, put your questions in the chat box because we can answer those. Yeah, do you want to maybe slip a little bit ahead? Because I have a feeling we're going to have a lot of questions about motion that's so important right now, about graphics, about AI, about where the world is going. I do have a question about your transition from Web 1 into Web 2. You said you took a break and then you got back into it. What was it that really brought you back in? And when you entered back into the design world, what was the biggest change? We're going, and the reason I'm asking this is right now we're in a unprecedented technological quick moving period where every time we wake up, there's a new skill we have to learn or a new tool that we might have to master. And AI is changing everything, which we can probably talk about later. But the transition from Web 1 to Web 2 was really interesting for all of us. So as you left and you came back, what was the biggest adaptation or lesson that you learned coming back into design?
Yeah, well, funny enough, from my perspective, in when it was those Web one stuff, I was overdoing it. I was going things too colorful, too much, and too much movement. So I think Web two, with the availability of more screens everywhere, gave the possibility actually of people like me, like motion designers and people who like to express themselves with movement, lots of
Yeah.
more potential and creativity. So in Berlin, there's been this lots of opportunities for doing design for small screen like the YouTube video of the likes, for big screens like the events, and so all I'm saying is different kind of industries are opening up to digital medias, and so this is what brings us to have potential and creating good stuff. Yes.
Yeah, definitely. I mean,
And
we live
actually,
in a world. Oh, go ahead.
I was gonna say that the next thing that I shortly wanted to say, the last before we enter Web 3, would be a collection of branding systems designed with motion in mind, and that's something that has been done also just before that in the few years ago. Yes.
Yeah, before we get into Web3, because obviously I'm so stoked that we get to talk about that for a while. We live in such a world of motion. And this is an area that a lot of product designers, UX designers, UI designers, product engineers are going to have to get used to and design within and bring into their websites, where websites without motion are kind of boring to a lot of people because of our attention span, or we're just used to quick motion, or we're used to the show. If somebody wants to get into motion graphics, how would you recommend that they take that leap? What would you say that they learn first? And also, why are motion graphics important to the overall picture?
That is a very relevant question, and the good funny thing is that I don't think I know the answer anymore, because if you ask me a few years ago, so the disruption that has happened in the last maybe 5 or 6 years in terms of tools has been tremendous, right? Or even just two
Mhm.
years. In the last 2 years, that so many tools are around that it's really difficult to actually create a path. So this is what I'm saying to my son often when we have this kind of chats. He's 13 years old, so he's approaching technology in a way that he can use creativity for the best.
Yeah,
It's not easy because there's not one path to go and do it. So in our days it was a little bit easy because once you know the goal is kind of um, less noise around, and therefore now I think the driver for innovation and evolution has to be really curiosity and just really be there, showing up and acknowledging that you have your a passion and something that you want to bring to the end. And ultimately, when you are there every day, showing up and doing a little bit of work, eventually good things come. So there's no shortcut. The short story, if even with all these tools, there's no shortcut. You need to put the work, and this is what I think people get a bit stuck in sometimes,
yeah,
including me, of course.
definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like we're gonna have to start a product guild drinking game, like take a shot every time Jessica shakes her head, because I feel like all I do the whole time is be like, yeah. But that's such a good answer, because I feel like a lot of people. I was talking to a friend this week, and she said, I want to get into UX UI design because I don't want to talk to people, I don't want to work with people, and I just want to do something that's easy that I can travel the world. And I was like, then do not get into design. There's a lot of critique, there's a lot of consistent learning, there's a lot of moving parts. That's not the world that you want to get into at all. And it's kind of what you said too. It's about showing up, whether that's learning new skills, learning new tools, learning how to understand new tools, finding the right pieces into them. I love that answer so much. I really want to learn motion design myself. I feel like it's a big hole in my toolkit. So I'm focusing on kind of Figma animations at the moment. So I'm so fascinated to see more of what you do and get into more of the conversation with you. So let's open that Web3 door. Take me into your Web3 journey.
Yes, very happily. So I'm gonna jump. Okay, there you go. There you have the Bitcoin chart. It is already there for us. So I was not there all the way until 2021. So this has been for me an experiment of looking back into the history books and figuring out how the price action went. But I think the most interesting part for me was something that maybe we can even show, which is how my process of learning things is to do something with it, right? So I created this one website called web3snapshot.io that it's basically a repository of ways into which one can learn about Web3. So
Amazing.
maybe what we can do, Jessica, we can play the video number 7,
Sure.
and I'm going to remove the sound from there so I can talk through it. So
Perfect.
it was the yeah, exactly, especially from the, if I can do this, right? Amazing. So I can actually, so since we speak about this web 1, web 2, and web 3, like I said, crafting a story that says, oh, in the end web 3 is about ownership, whereas the experience of past technologies were kind of going there. So in
Yeah.
this visual, it's also embedded with the metaverse and new ways into which we possibly will benefit from technology, and from there on, there's been a lot of so there's a lot of icons and a lot of visuals that kind of tell the story of how you can make your wallet and how you can get initialized into this world of owning your data and owning what you create in a
I like
decentralized
these,
way.
Marco, because in Web3, this is something that I run into a lot, is the amount of information that we often have to give, either with explaining our protocol or explaining data or movement flows or how to use the product is really a challenge for designers. And you've actually done a really great job here with, showing the flows. And I think this comes from that product design mentality where you're so used to having to map things out, put them together, simplify them, create a flow for it. So you've done this amazing website here, but then it also brings in so much of the design theory and the communication theory in here. This is really great. Your icons are great. I love the way
I,
this looks.
I appreciate you saying it, and yeah, trying to use logic and to keep it simple also is a difficult one. But I'm very very grateful for this project, which obviously this is never finished. But the goal was to actually, of course, keep on building on it. But luckily, new things came around, and this is how I. It was really what it was 2023, where with this tool I got to join the Solana community during this Grizzlyathon, which if you can switch back into the PDF briefly. Yeah, this is
Absolutely.
where it was a lucky coincidence meeting up with Carlos, Chris, Orion, and the original super team gang. It's been so much fun building through that year. It was 2.5, 2 years ago, yes. And I would love to show you as a next. I would love to show you the product that I was part of during this hackathon. So maybe I can do this. Exactly. So
Awesome.
Trigger, now we finally talk about Web3 products. And Trigger has been conceived by Carlos, good friend of mine. He's now working for Squads, so he's definitely crushing it. And the idea for Trigger is this automation platform where you can connect different protocols into and create automations and create workflows that work seamlessly. Obviously, this is a work in progress, and we are going to watch a video now that has been created back then, which enabled us to go through the hackathon with some little prize, and so we were happy, very happy about it. And so if you want, you can play the video number 8,
I
and
would
this is the
absolutely love.
introduction of product. Yes.
Perfect. And I want to let Hartlepool Lad know, I do see your question. We're going to ask that at the end, so please don't feel like I'm ignoring you. We'll pull that in at the end of the combo here.
Oh yeah.
Beautiful. Wow. The storytelling on that is amazing. And I think it brings this question to me because obviously we're storytellers, we're designers, we want to get information out quickly. How do you feel that your animation told that story in a way that simply showing the graphic wouldn't?
Oh, the most funny part about this one was that the story itself and maybe even the production was it's been definitely less than a day. Like okay, we have this idea of rules because you can create an automation, so you can put a bunch of rules one after the other and you can execute them easily. And so the idea of breaking the rules was somehow it came through a chat with Carlos, and the implementation turned out to be super kind of straightforward because for once, keeping it simple. I struggle with sometimes with keeping it simple because I tend to maybe add a little too much, and but in this case, the simplicity was really killing it, and I'm really happy for the result of this. Yeah.
Yeah, talk to me about the hackathon experience as a designer and creating the front end and the UX and bringing that product story together. we're actually going into hackathon season right now. We've got Buildathon coming up in Berlin. We've got Berlin Blockchain Week. The Coliseum hackathon is going on. The Redacted hackathon is going on. And UX/UI actually gets left out quite a lot in terms of just getting to the MVP and as something that will figure later in the process, which happens a lot. So since you are a hackathon survivor and it brought you into us here at Super Team, give me some tips for putting that UX/UI together under pressure, or the importance of the product or presentation with the motion, graphics, and branding. So your experience.
Yeah, I mean, it's been a blast because when you see talented people and people that want to go to the end with some end products, this is really, it's really self energizing. And I think to what you said, um, it's impossible obviously to create a functioning product in a hackathon. So the idea of the hackathon has to be sell the idea and make something that people will remember that product to distinguish from all the others. So within this context, creating a motion graphics video can be a winning idea, solution, because when your idea is smart, you can make it stand out instead of spending. So obviously the coding part must be working for sure, but I think when you combine that with something that people can grasp on and can remember, I think this is it's bringing more value. So
Yeah.
maybe through memes or any AI generation, which can be really fast nowadays in a hackathon within 24 hours, not only the product can take shape into an MVP or something usable, but I think some campaign can come out to make
Yeah.
it more memorable. Yeah.
I'm going to step back to something else that you said as well, and that is simplicity and just putting the bear on there. I'm also a heavy designer. You and I talked about one of the websites that I'm finishing up right now for a big Solana client, and we had our product review last night at midnight due to time zones, and I was laughing with them. I said my friends kind of call me the Dolly Parton of web design because I like a lot of color. I like a lot of flashy elements, and I always design heavy and then pare it down, bring it down into reality. And last night was one of the I was laughing with the group about how many times I had to simplify it, and I showed them the original designs down to what we did in the product review last night. So how do you know whether that's your branding or your storytelling or your motion graphics? Like, this is so clean and so elegant, and to the outside world it probably looks very simple, but we know how much goes into this. So how do you know when to take it down and when to say this is the story and there's no extra parts?
That's a very good question, and I think the immediate answer for me is having teammates around or people that I can reflect with and having quick feedback. Because I know, as I said before, I know I tend to struggle with the minimalistic side. So
Mhm.
if I have a trusted person next to me that we can evaluate things together, that is very helpful. So I would definitely recommend, do not go all the way alone. We know when you are alone, you can go faster, but I think it's really important to have reality checks with at least one or teammates. Yes.
Awesome. All right, take me deeper into your story.
My story, thank you for allowing me that, continues because it's been a very intense year, 23, where shortly after as the Solana experience was evolving, I got even more privileged to join a very successful team, which is the Graph OG protocol in the crypto ecosystem. And so I got to join some NFTs. I got to join the Graph team almost 2 years ago, and it's been again very satisfaction. I don't know how to say it. Lots of satisfaction because I saw that ideas are valued and potential freedom of expression is possible. And so I want to show one of my early contribution is this video, which is the number 9 that you can click. So for those who don't know what is the Graph is an indexing protocol for blockchain.
To the Graph, powering a new internet with open data.
There you go.
Blockchains are revolutionary in how they enable a shift away from centralized forms of power, in which ownership is restricted and censorship causes threats to society, into decentralized systems that guarantee more control for the user. Blocks of data are chained together, each containing many transactions that generate various data types that are unstructured, slow, and expensive to process. So how can Web3 apps like marketplaces, financial or governance platforms access data in a quick, reliable, and affordable way? Enter the graph, the standard for organizing and accessing Web3 data, connecting infrastructure and users to support unstoppable applications, all of it while preserving decentralization and following the Web3 ethos. When we look inside, we see how the graph's tools enable developers to take raw data, structure it into specific databases that are easy to query for anyone to build anything, and foster the power of an open internet. Visit thegraph.com and find out how you can be part of this flourishing ecosystem.
Wow. I loved the way the particles carried through all of that and dissolved and came back together, and it was that consistent thread. And then I don't know if anyone watching can see this, but just the subtle background on this slide here, you did not miss any details. Like, this is beautiful. Walk me through this.
So the text, I mean, again, this is a teamwork, and I'm privileged to work with very talented people in the design team of the graph. So actually, the brand of the graph has a history of merging the ancient past coming from Aztec visionary visuals into connecting envisioning the future of communications, basically. So in a past into which civilizations used to build bridges and roads and infrastructure for the world, of course, in Web3 we build this kind of infrastructure for digital content, and the graph is one of the original protocols that successfully managed to create this in a decentralized way. So that's it's really crucial, and I would like to connect this to how things come together nicely. So then the graph meets Solana, because it's been a news from not too long ago, just maybe less than a year ago, where Substreams, which is a product on the graph, is the ability to connect. So Solana users can use Substreams in order to index and stream data for their own applications. So if you want to click on the video number 12.
Perfect.
So this is very different. Obviously, we are talking Twitter, we are talking short form content, and obviously we are talking to developers who know what command line looks like, and this is how the idea of these nuggets animations is to really tell developers, hey, you can take this snippet of code and put it into your application. So Substreams enables Solana users to actually stream data very fast.
I love it. iCube30 in the chat says, I really like the animations with, I can't tell if it's Cookie Monster or a fish, but he's here for it. It's so great. And I love that you showed these two, because let's talk about the importance of understanding the audience. So a lot of times as a product designer or branding or graphic, you are working for a company and you have to support that company's branding while also doing kind of sub branding as well for different products or different audiences. So here you have the graph, you've got two different products, you've got two different audiences, and yet you still create a symbiotic process. So how do you know how to make the subtle differences or subtle changes to speak to the audience in the right way?
Very good questions, very deep. I think we could use a lot of time. I think the essence of this is sharing idea with teammates and people that understand. So don't let everything in your head, because as much as you can have a brilliant idea or something successful, having validation from your teammates is very important, because it allows you to see what is lacking out of what's in your mind, pretty much.
Yeah, you've given a lot of support to your teammates through every step, which I love. I think it's so important to have that camaraderie and communication with your teammates. But what does your design process look like? Like, could you quickly walk me through how you get into the flow or how you get started even producing ideas?
Well, this question is a tricky one right now. In the things, how can I say, in the graph, the things are developed to a point into which there is always something to look from and to evolve. And therefore, obviously, I was lucky to be joining the team because because of my design style was matching the requests of the graph brand. And therefore, if you ask me how I approach, it's I go back to the days of the travelings, and we talk about like 10 years ago. And so when you have geometry, I try to use the concept of geometrical and symmetry to
Yeah.
bring some to create a composition that functions and that can be a good basis for the story to be unfold. So that could be something that resonates, because then when you have geometric elements, I can always reuse them and to match them in mix and match them in different ways.
I like that. Okay. I know you've got a lot to tell, so I don't want to keep taking you off track from your story. What do you want to go into next? You have so many great.
it's al- it's also no, yeah, I mean, I see also in the chat, it's really nice to see people, yeah, it's really nice to see people in the chat. And I can show you a few more of these snuggets. If you can play the number 11, this is a funny one because it shows how three different pieces come together.
Lovely. Let's do it.
Yes. So luckily we have a lot of code being deployed all the time, right? So this format that you just saw, it's something that we can easily and quickly output. So whenever there's a news in our code base, we can create one of these animations to say the world, hey, you can go and fetch it on GitHub, for example.
Nice. So kind of a little standard template to save some time, but still have a great output.
Yeah, we hope
Maybe.
so. We hope that people on Twitter, I mean, on Twitter, there's a lot of a lot of stuff happens all the time, and hopefully the devs. I mean, some people say the devs are not at all on Twitter, but maybe those who take a break sometimes they can enjoy the visuals like that. And speaking of that, we can play now the video number 13 because it's again a short format video, which is in again a format which is called animated quotes, specifically because the graph has a podcast into which we invite relevant people in the ecosystem, and I selected this one which features Brianna from the Solana Foundation, which has been interviewed during the GRT podcast. And so we took a snippet from her into which she talks about the graph and put it into, again, the context of the visual language that the graph already has to create some engaging attention clip.
Okay,
So video number 13, yes.
Perfect.
The graph, it just simplifies being able to query data. And also with its network, it's able to just scale and match the current demand of Solana's high throughput and extreme amount of transactions.
Yes. I'm happy that we managed to come almost until the end of all the things that I wanted to show. I hope there's enough time for chit-chatting and other questions. I'm looking at the PDF. Yeah, some things have been skipped, but pretty much. If you can go back to the PDF, please, then I can show a few more other, visual outputs. In this case, we have diagrams. So again, telling a complicated story, you use a napkin to make those arrows and calculations. Sometimes it's nice to have it. Actually, often from some technical people in my team, I receive napkins with a scribble, and then my fun duty is to transform that into something that is more appealing for a presentation or for social media.
Yeah, I mean, when inspiration hits, you got to ride on whatever's next to you.
Exactly. I'm in all of this. We haven't talked, so I haven't done pretty much product design as in conventional web design. This is really just one proposal that I was coming up, and the idea for redesigning some query structure that within the graph people can do. And I don't think we have time at all to dive into this, but just to show potential for redesign is also encouraged within our team. So that's really interesting.
Nice. Talk to me about something that you said earlier in regards to the brand kit and overall branding, because what you do pairs down into the product design in terms of keeping everything consistent. How do you keep yourself on brand? I think this is something that a lot of founders struggle with, a lot of devs struggle with in terms of what is a brand? How do we define the brand? How do we keep that consistent throughout the product? So how do you know if you're on or off, or if you're in the middle ground, how do you push yourself over?
So as you spoke, I was flipping through these pages because eventually, again, it has to, on one hand, there has this idea of doing something new and creative and evolution, and at the same time, you have to stick to something that is intangible, no?
Yeah.
So keep on being on brand is something that we discussed constantly within our design team, and again, it's not easy to keep on brand, but keep on being original. This is the challenge that requires. So I don't think there's a formula in there, and I think it's really about trying to keep both eyes on these two ends, no? Not changing or changing, or how to change. So with the graph, the geometry is somehow very powerful tool that we use, as you can see from these logo or sub brands that we developed. So we have some 45 degrees, we have some circles. Sometimes we have to move away from that as well, but you don't really notice, like the fire hose logo, for example. And again, I'm flipping through numbers of icons that have been developed, and again, it's something that you perceive. You cannot really tell what makes them so special. Obviously, when it comes to the physical side of the icon, you have obviously the outline and the color. These are the primitive into which a design element is made of. Shout out to Carl, who's the design manager, who successfully nails all the time to keep the consistency at maximum. So that's something that it's simple. It's difficult to tell. So now, for example, you see these three logos for DAOs. Again, when you see them in the context of the black and white, it's something, and then you see them in the context of having their own unicity in terms of color, and suddenly they have their own life, so to say. Go now, you have your color, go and go into the world. So that's something that it's hard to make a rule out of it. I cannot answer your question so easily, I'm afraid.
Well, let's turn it a little bit. Talk to me about, why branding? What is the impact of the brand on the final product?
Again, university. We go back to the university. In the end, all the things. What I find is so interesting and also ironic in a way is that the things, to be successful, they have to be invisible. So by the moment you can point it out too clearly, it means this is too much on one side, for example. And so the topic of a successful brand is when you don't notice and everything feels seamless, or that when there's something wrong, you notice when something wrong, because when something is perfect, ideally you never notice. And this is how a smooth interactions with products that we use in our daily life go. You are by default, you need to be happy and you need to be content, and when there's something wrong, let's say, okay, now there's a problem. So it's invisible, the invisible machine that comes only with experience and like I said before, touching base with people like-minded that can understand you.
Wow. No, I love that, because it has to be invisible, right? And it goes back to, we talk about this book almost every single time on the show, but it's called Don't Make Me Think. And whether it's branding or whether it's product, it's the least amount of brain power that it takes for the end user to recognize and move through and get that connection. So making that feeling of the branding invisible and just there. I love that. I love the way you said that so much. That was so wonderfully said.
And so to circle back, we saw the map of the world beforehand, and now we see a map of the world in a different way, which is the communities that the graph. So people in the real world in any of these continents and countries have created self-initiated communities for enthusiasts or people that use the graph products. And so we had a fascinating challenge to create custom sub brands for each one of these continent and countries, which is it's been one of my most fun projects to work on, as you can imagine, given the past. So how to stick on brand? Eventually, if I could zoom into that design, we have this octagon, which is the shape that we decided to be for the communities, and the octagon is the rule. And then around the octagon you can work around the edges and create something very specific for that specific place. So when you have in the China, there is some motif that reminds to the typical Chinese patterns, for example, and obviously the colors of the flag are being taken into account here.
Wow, that's so cool. I just want to look at it, and
It
but
is.
we have to talk.
Yeah, when you go to the Twitter page of the graph, and there you will. This is the place where everything
Yeah.
comes together, because there's lots of community people, people that self-initiatedly creates content of any sorts, and it's really interesting how it comes together for. Again, most of the time from us as teammates, but also from people that are from the outside.
Yeah.
And I had this one we saw already. This one again, more images. I want to spend a moment to maybe this is the last project I'm going to show. So we have Kevin and Marcos, the DevRel team. Shout out to them. They always do a great job. And I want to introduce you to this maybe the last project that I'm showing you now is called the Builders Base Camp, a self-initiated project by Kevin, who in his free time decided to create a tool for people to learn about how to use a subgraph and how to build on the graph. So it's a project which is live already. I think I can't recall the address. We will see the address later. It's made of missions. So when you accomplish the first mission, you get an NFT, and then you continue on the challenges of creating more subgraph and getting familiar with the technology. And with that, I think if you can play video number 14, that is this is the video that introduces the project. And again, it was a lucky coincidence for me to be in the right place in the right time to take some content that existed, put it in together in a fun way so that nobody gets bored. So that was my mission.
Awesome. Let's take a look at the next video. So cool.
So much and so cool. Thank you. I appreciate it. And the work of, again, merging the technology with something that is fun to use. I think it's something that makes all of us feeling very comfortable. I think this may be the last slide. If you go back to the PDF where it's about the Solana event happening next month in New York, Accelerate, and we are gonna be there as the Graph team. So for all the curious out there, maybe there will be possibilities for using, again, graph products on Solana, and or maybe discuss other topics of any sorts.
Amazing. I love how all of the examples that you've shown have shown just kind of the growth of the web to where we are now, but also the importance of involving the end user. I think a lot of times in design, especially on the product design end, we always say the user, the user, the user. But sometimes we forget that we also have to involve them and bring them into the product that we design. And that's what your graphics and your movement have really done in terms of finishing the storytelling, keeping the attention. They're sharp, they're snappy. There's enough there, not too much. A lot of times with graphics, you can get overwhelmed. And that's a challenge of us, is to pare it down, as we've talked about many times. These are beautiful. I'm so jealous you're going to be in New York City. I want to be there so bad and say hi to everybody that's relocated over there. I want to go into the comments real quick because Hartlepool did ask. He said he's done scrolly telling on a website and had to handle scroll linked animations via JavaScript. Do you have any tool recommendations for frameworks?
There definitely are a bunch of frameworks specifically. So the first one that comes to my head is Framer, but if you in order to do this with a vanilla JavaScript, I think you would have to know a little too much. So I think a framework can really help nowadays. Unfortunately, my merging of web design, so coding and motion, has been always like in terms of testing out for prototypes. So I cannot suggest you a tool that you may want to use for production. I also have a bunch of, which I haven't even shown, about D3, so data visualization interactive. That would be another call that we can do.
Yeah,
Yes,
we've got to do that because data visualization. Okay, we'll get that scheduled.
Yeah, again, storytelling is a thing. Some people take it to the hyper next level to create incredibly rich experiences with storytelling. Maybe the word is not the hottest, but a lot of potential is there. So
Yeah,
I would look into. I don't have a specific besides Framer, the one I know.
yeah, no problem. I'll tell you what, Hartlepool Lad. What I'll do is I'll put that question up on my I almost said Instagram, on my X, which is I'm a Happy Writer. And we will see what we can source from the community to help you out on that. So hang out with me over at I'm a Happy Writer. Back from my pre-web
too easy if I sorry if I tell you just use ChatGPT, maybe the Cursor or any AI assistant code, that could be the easy solution. I shouldn't say that, but
I mean, it's a part of our world, and I think that's a whole other conversation. We need to have two conversations in the future: data and then AI. How do we bring that in? How are we working with it? How are we existing with it? Because we've got to learn how to use it eventually, but pair it, not use it.
no, I think in the end, my opinion is quite clear. Like any AI tool, it's just like in Photoshop you have the plugins, in Illustrator you have the effects, whatever. So AI, it's nothing but an additional tool that we can use and we must use in order to stay up to date.
Yeah, it's definitely a tool, and the world will move faster, so we have to learn how to incorporate that into our flow, for sure. That should definitely be a future episode. Marco, I have one final question for you that I ask everyone that comes on my show. You cannot use Steve Jobs.
Sorry?
Who is your design inspiration?
Ooh, I mean, by now, it would be too cheesy if I say Carl from my design team. He provides me with a lot. Back in the days of design inspiration, back in the days of the original motion design community, there are those names, those people who really raised the bar, and so we are forever thankful to them. I don't know, on top of my head come J.R. Kane. I don't know, there are so many talented artists. I would have to think, because maybe my answer could go somewhere else, into something more like from the Da Vinci perspective, from the 15th century. It could be something that could take us inspiration from there.
Yeah, I love it. And I never like to tell people I'm asking that question. I'm sure they're going to catch on eventually as this product guild grows, but I love to just see what comes off the top of someone's head. So it's truly,
Yes.
what you remember. And then I also think it's important to talk about non-design issues. So really quickly to end us out, what is your favorite non-design related podcast or book?
Non-design related podcast or book. Well, I'm a hitchhiker. I'm a Hitchhikers to the Galaxy fan. Not too long ago. I entered the rabbit hole. So something that I got really a lot of inspiration from recently is this saga, which is hilarious, and it's such an old book, like from it's been written in the 70s or in the 80s, and it's still so actual. So I would say one of my most inspiration right now comes from that series.
Amazing. I love it. We can pull inspiration from so many sources, which is why I love that. The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy is one of the all-time best opening lines in any book. I'm not going to say it, but anyone who's watching should go Google it. I'll put it in the show notes. It's brilliant. And then also, so we can talk about that a whole other time too. Please tell everyone where they can find you. I'm going to put it in the show notes. I'm going to tag you in the episode recap. I'm going to make sure it's in YouTube, everywhere else. But oh, look at you. Close this
Just
down.
ask. Yeah, easy. I'm not the most active social media person, but yes, my Twitter profile, my X profile is there. My Lost Conversation website has been, again, forever. There's a collection of so much work that has been done over the years, and I'm always very proud and happy to hear from anyone. It's been really fun chatting. Jess, thank you for the moderation.
Yeah, thank you so much for coming on. We'll have to chat data visualization down the road and bring you right back. You
Sure.
were an excellent guest. Thank you so much for letting me slide into your DMs and bring you on the show. And we hope to see you again in the future.
Again, I want to also thank the people in the chat, Sarko, Arku, and iCube. Thank you so much, everyone.
Definitely.
Okay.
All right. Have a great evening, everyone. We'll see you in 2 weeks.
All right.
Bye.
Bye.
Maybe. I got to end it on my